The real fireworks start on June 13th, while the real fire sale would happen not even 2 years after this event concluded. Oh boy, the downhill slide of World Championship Wrestling has commenced. It's in full goddamn swing, and what an event this wasn't. I'm John Rant with the Retro Review of WCW Great American Bash 1999, taking place on June 13th, 1999, in the home of the Great American Bash, Baltimore, Maryland, at the Baltimore Arena in Baltimore, Maryland. My God, the logistics of this whole thing, it worked out so perfectly. Yeah, 185,000 pay-per-view buys, and not all that bad, all things considered, considering that WCW is spiraling out of control at this point. Now, WCW would still have some good moments. Even in 2000, there were moments that actually stuck out in 2000. I just don't know if they stuck out for the right reasons, because my, oh my, where to start with this event? Probably at the beginning. When we get to the end, stop. I realized that I had not actually retro-reviewed this and was like, all right, let me give it a shot. Now, there are a handful of WCW pay-per-views I have not retro-reviewed. I found this out by going through my channel and doing a little search. I'm like, oh my God. I've reviewed stuff like Mayhem or a couple of World War III events or one of the Road Wild events. Yes, why not dive into some of this retro stuff? Now, I do remember the television to an extent, and it's a good thing I have watched some of the wrestling bios, reliving the war stuff, and no, obviously not anything that I was asked to plug, but I just really appreciate their channel, and they do great work over there. But man, they were in a fucking free fall at this point. They would still have some good television into the fall, and then things would really get bad once Bischoff was sent home, and Russo came aboard, crossing enemy lines, so to speak, on October 5th, 1999. Right after Benoit and Bret Hart had the Owen Hart tribute match on the Nitro the night before. But before that, let's talk about the various Great American Bash events that took place before. So, I have reviewed the previous Great American Bash events, and even ones that were found in the Hidden Gems section, which I don't even know if that exists on the Cock, but it existed on WWE Network, the award-winning WWE Network at the time. So, the 1988 Great American Bash, Baltimore, Maryland, 14,000 fans and 190,000 pay-per-view buys. So, yeah, we go 11 years later, and they did 5,000 less. And that's when Jim Crockett Promotions was drawing a goddamn fortune, seemingly, but they were spending so much money. They were, in the goddamn hole because Crockett didn't know how to spend his money properly. 1989, again in Baltimore. Pretty much everything. There's only like a few that weren't in Baltimore. So if I mention the city, then it's somewhere else. 14,500 fans. So that's a big goddamn deal. 140,000 pay-per-view buys. Now, that's a great buy rate, considering that Jim Herd was running WCW into the ground at that point, and you had Terry Funk and Ric Flair in the main event. 1990, you had 14,000 fans, 200,000 pay-per-view buys. Pretty big goddamn deal, all things considered. Sting winning the World Heavyweight Championship. By the way, all these facts and figures from WrestleNomics as far as buy rates and everything, so they're always great to support and check out their work. 1991, 9,320 fans. Really, really down compared to the previous crowds in Baltimore. 145,000 pay-per-view buys. They wanted Flair. They didn't get Flair. 1992, Albany, Georgia. 8,000 fans, 70,000 pay-per-view buys. Bill Watts did great in WCW, didn't he? He had some great in-ring action, but good. I mean, WCW is like almost in the toilet at that point until they cut costs and everything and got Bill Watts out of there because Bill Watts just had behavioral issues. He's a great mind for wrestling, or had a great mind for wrestling, but my goodness. And then they went on ice, actually. We got Beach Blast instead, and we got to 1995. They were in Dayton, Ohio, 6,000 fans, 100,000 pay-per-view buys. Okay, the return of the Great American Bash, return to glory. 1996, back in Baltimore, 9,000 fans, 170,000 pay-per-view buys. Molina, Illinois was 1997 edition and location, 9,613 fans, that is, 9,613 pay-per-view buys. Ouch! So, 220,000, that is, pay-per-view buys. 1998, back in Baltimore, same with 2,000. You had 12,810 fans. The last time that they got above 10,000, and, for the entire, well, I mean, except, for 1999. So pretty much they were in the goddamn hole for a while. I mean, it was kind of insane. And they actually had about 1,200 less for the 1999 edition. 290,000 pay-per-view buys, and then 2,000 still in Baltimore, just over 7,000 fans, 85,000 pay-per-view buys. Ouch. So yeah, let's talk about this particular event. Starting now, now. I do apologize, by the way, if I sound a little bit rough, allergies, and just feeling run down and everything, but I wanted to do this and add some snark to this particular thing. Kurt Hennig greets Master P and the No Limit Soldiers. Remember Master P? Make him say, na 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 na. Remember Master P? Yeah, I totally forgot about him too. I always forget that he was involved in wrestling until I see events like this. So he greets the group, Hennig does, and then breaks a CD, and then they get in the fight. This won't factor into the pay-per-view later. This is how they started the pay-per-view, by the way. Something that people paid for, and the runtime on the Peacock addiction. The Peacock addiction. If you have an addiction to Peacock, consult your local doctor. So they did this package in the beginning, and then for the main event, Randy Savage and Kevin Nash were sniping at each other. Randy Savage had attacked him and put lipstick on his face for whatever reason. And then they did a thing where a contortionist redhead was apparently in a duffel bag. Not 8 heads in a duffel bag. That is a deep cut. And poured a bag of alleged shit all over Randy and a pink furry jacket that he had for some reason. This is how they built up the feud. I remember this television, and I don't know why they thought this was a good idea. But Nash got greeted by some women, locked in a Hummer. Randy then drove the Hummer, or drove the limo, rather, into the path of the Hummer right after getting out of it. Who drove the Hummer? It was either Sid, Hogan, it was whatever. But then everybody wrecked Sid's cars, and then Sid had 30 minutes to move his cube. Is it about my cube? Well, he has half the cube that we do. So, I don't know who the redhead was that was in the carry-on bag or the duffel bag, but boy, nice contortionist and everything. I'm all for that. Let's move on. So, the cameraman was shooting like the goddamn ceiling for some reason and missed the fucking pyro, because apparently the production team was asleep at the goddamn switch. Bobby Heenan, Tony Schiavone, Mike Tenay on commentary. And Nash has bad ribs. He's hurt, but he's going about it. He wanted the top rope elbow reinstated because he wanted to beat Randy at his best, even if Nash wasn't at his best. A stupid thing to do, but whatever. So then we get a brief rundown of the card with video packages. Brian Knobbs then basically dedicates this match to Miss Nasty because it's her birthday, and he's going to beat Hardcore Hack for her. Brian Knobbs with a mic at any point was a bad idea, but Brian Knobbs with a mic and in the ring in 1999, evidently this was a Hulk Hogan favor. Hulk Hogan, who was not on this program, by the way. Hulk Hogan, who would not return until after Bash at the Beach 99 the following month. But Hack, a.k.a. Sandman, with Chastity, that bald tire individual, against Knobbs with Jimmy Hart. Let's get rid of these sticks and toys and, find out who's the most hardcore of all. I've got my fists taped. You get your fists taped, and let's just go at it. But then it was all a ruse, and Knobbs just hit Hack over the head with weapons. Trash cans, trash can lids. They brought a ladder out. They did a whole bunch of stupid stuff. There was really nothing of note with this match. Like, about anything that Sandman did once the bell rang. I mean, look, Sandman had one of the best entrances. And Paul Heyman cultivated that, and he was pretty over in WCW. He did get a pretty good ratings bump. He wasn't there very long. He got paid for a number of months before debuting. But I did kind of find it funny when the ladder got tossed onto Brian Knobbs' back. Heenan said he harpooned him with the ladder. I don't know why that made me laugh. But Hack won with even after interference, and Jimmy Hart took a bump. Poor Jimmy Hart. I mean, Jimmy Hart at this point, he's what, about 80 now? So he was in his 50s doing this stuff, and the cane shot gets the victory. And then Hugh Morris runs out and does a No Laughing Matter moonsault onto a goddamn ladder, and then Brian, which would hurt Hack Some, but would probably hurt Hugh Morris more. Hugh Morris, as it were. And Brian Knobbs then gets a trash can and says, I'm going to smash this trash can into the ladder. You should have thought that through, but you're Brian Knobbs and you don't have an attached brain stem. And that's it. Yeah, that's really about it right there. So we're off to a snoring start here. Speaking of snoring starts, here's Bagwell. He wants to help Piper because Piper got Bagwell an opportunity to face Disco Inferno tonight. Oh joy, oh me, oh my, down by the bayou. This match should have been put in the bayou. Actually, Van Hammer looked like he just stepped out of the bayou, even though he's in great shape. I don't know what the fuck that hair was. I don't know why he basically looked like he was stoned out of his gourd. Mikey Whipwreck was his opponent. Who asked for this? People paid for this. People paid pay-per-view prices, even if that was $24.99, $29.99. I don't remember the pay-per-view prices at that point. They were paying pay-per-view prices. And at that point, people were starting to pinch their pennies because WCW was really starting to have issues. The last time they even hit 100,000 pay-per-view buys, I believe, was the following year's Bash at the Beach. And then everything just went down because Russo didn't know what he was doing. The crowd didn't give a fuck. The commentary was talking about who drove the white Hummer, who basically gave Kevin Nash a white Hummer. And this was a mess because Van Hammer really couldn't do anything. And Whipwreck was shot physically. And he talked about that. He had various injuries and he was going to take most of the year off and everything because he, bless him, the guy worked hard, but the guy got by being an underdog and everything and suffered a lot of injuries. There was like this, I don't know what the hell it was. It was like a single arm. He was like, just picked him up and did a variation of like a lift and a choke and then slammed him down and Hammer got the victory. I call it the Hammer throw. 1, 2, 3, and there you are. Van Hammer wins a pay-per-view match in 1999, and gee, I can't figure out why WCW had problems keeping fans with matches like this. And then Buff Bagwell and Disco Inferno had a pose-off, and then did stalling, did occasional moves. Disco got cocky later, even when he was targeting the previously injured neck of Buff Bagwell. Got hit with the blockbuster, 1, 2, 3. Now, I've seen worse, but it's a Disco Inferno match, and when Buff is the most over of anybody in a match, you have problems. And then the Rap is Crap theme is playing, and Kurt Hennig and Bobby Duncombe Jr. are coming to the ring, part of the West Texas Rednecks. It is eerie that Duncombe Jr. would be dead inside a year. I think he died in early or late January of 2000. I think it was some kind of drug overdose. He was 34. Like, that's the scary part. And yes, there are people that are no longer alive as part of that are on this pay-per-view. But it's just still eerie that even within, like, almost within 6 fucking months, like, that's just scary. And Duncombe Jr., I think, was wrestling as recent as, I believe he was on the Road Wild card. If he wasn't, I believe he was on the Fall Brawl card. I don't think that he was on past Halloween Havoc. And then was released from his contract soon after. The whole West Texas Rednecks thing didn't go anywhere. I blame the fact that Kendall Windham was involved in it because Kendall Windham was never really all that great. But anyway, No Limit Soldier members, Conan and Rey Mysterio, who were wearing gas masks for some reason, probably because Master P was Toxic Death. And yeah, they took on the West Texas Rednecks, Hennig and Duncombe Jr. And I'm going to be perfectly honest, this was the best match on the show up to this point because Hennig and Duncombe Jr., Hennig was a ring general, and Duncombe Jr., pretty goddamn good overall, even if he was taken too soon. And Ray, I don't know exactly what was going on with Ray and why he thought that gas mask thing was a good idea. Master P and the crew are in the crowd. A jump start by the faces. Hennig tries to pick a fight with Master P, gets slapped around. That's not a DQ somehow. The heels isolate Ray, and then they build to a hot tag with Conan. Barry Windham shows up to increase the numbers advantage to the Rednecks. And then this guy named Big Swole. No, not the Big Swole that was in AEW previously. And I assume has been doing independent since. I haven't kept track of her, of what she's done. I wish her nothing but the best. But another big swole, a guy that was infinitely less talented and, worth being in the ring. He ended up hitting Duncan Jr. and Ray got the victory. And then the Cowboys and the No Limit Soldiers are fighting, and then they fight to the back. Except security is separating them. And then the No Limit Soldier members, they're all back there. Ray and Conan are still in the ring. 3 Cowboys hog tie a Mexican and hold the other Mexican while his partner's being hog tied. News at 11. Oh, Baltimore, never change. Yeah, they hog tied him. It's Ray Tysterio. I should have workshopped that. Ernest Miller and Horace Hogan had a match. People paid for this. People paid for this goddamn thing. Now, Ernest Miller eventually got to the point where fans started to appreciate him. I don't know why, because Ernest Miller really was not that good in the ring. But my God, he seemed like a fucking 5-star wrestler compared to Horace fucking Hogan. You thought George Goulas was bad. Sonny Ono interfered. He put a loaded shoe on Miller's foot, and he got a kick, the feliner, 1, 2, 3. That was 5 minutes that felt like 15. It was abhorrent. Horace Hogan was a lousy fucking wrestler. The crowd did not care one bit about this. Who would? Who would care about this? So package on Flair and Piper and who will control WCW and all the Horseman nonsense. Malenko and Benoit saying we're done. We're done with the Horseman thing. And Benoit was done a number of years later, but Benoit and Malenko were done with WCW about 7 months after this. So, the entrances for each guy took about 4 minutes combined, and the match itself was maybe 9 minutes. And yes, Piper and Flair. Flair had Asia, who had as much business being around a wrestling ring as I do or anyone else that's just a fan. She should have been on the goddamn opposite side of the barricade, watching it like a fan, because she was lousy. And Arn Anderson, who kept getting involved physically, despite the fact that he couldn't wrestle anymore because of the botched surgery, the neck issue, and the arm issue. The Arn arm issue. Well, there you go. Control WCW. Now, mind you, Slamboree 99 that I just retro-viewed recently, Flair had beaten Piper. They did all this fluky stuff, but then Bischoff, who had no power because Flair took the power away from him by beating him, came down and said, nah, we're not doing this. Piper controls WCW. But then in the interim, they did this. And then it becomes even worse when you realize what they do at the end of the match. So, Flair got pantsed at one point. We kept getting interference. Asia was bloody fucking rotten. Couldn't do shit at all. Why was she there? Oh, because they wanted to capitalize on the China thing. Here's the thing. China could wrestle guys, and guys could put her in the position she needed to be in properly, and she could do some strikes and stuff like that, and they could make it look good. You couldn't have had anybody work with Asia. You could have had the best male wrestler. You could have Lou Thez wouldn't have worked with her. You could have had any wrestler from the territory days and the pioneer days work with Asia, and they wouldn't have gotten anything good out of her because she was terrible. This was ass, and I'm just curling that up right now because this was ass. Flair got a loaded punch, but just for 2 because the referee was distracted for a while. And then Buff stopped Arn from interfering. Then he attacked Flair and caused a DQ. So Flair won. Piper didn't have control of WCW. So Piper would be upset but be like, all right, we'll get him next time. But then he attacks Buff. And then Arn and Flair are holding Buff while Piper whips him. So basically all that stuff of Piper wanting to help out the young people, which, yeah, might have been a load of bullshit. And Piper was always much better heel than he was a face, even though we liked him. The fact that they did this and then Piper and Flair would just run roughshod and be, co-presidents. And then Sting would win the presidency sometime after. It was either sometime before or right after Bash at the Beach 99. And then he would give the power back to WCW. But WCW at that point had the power cord unplugged and they had nothing left. Yeah, Piper. It gives me a headache. It gives me a headache. I hate it. I hate all of it. We have 3 more fucking matches here. Don't worry, things get better. Much better. Much better. They can't get any worse. Rick Steiner is a TV champion, but he's not defending his title against Sting, the icon. At this point, had been on the religious kick. You know what? Whatever. He traded one addiction for another. It works for him. It's bullshit, but it works for him. So they started brawling. Sting wanted revenge because Rick Steiner had attacked him recently. There's a pile driver on the concrete floor, which, by the way, probably should have put Sting out for. He is the icon. He is Stingvincible. And that will not happen. And I honestly, mixed up the 2 pay-per-views because I thought a certain incident actually happened at Bash at the Beach 99. But oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, no. They go to They end up going to the back after Sting hits a splash off the top for 2. A scorpion for a rope break and a falls count anywhere match. I don't get that. But they go to the back, and then I realize, oh shit, God, I mixed this and Bash at the Beach up. I knew it didn't have a slamboree, but then I remembered a bunch of other bullshit happened to Bash at the Beach. But Tank Abbott, who I forgot was involved in the company in mid-1999. He shouldn't have been involved at all because he wasn't any good. But then Scott Steiner unleashes 2 Dobermans that attack Sting, in the sense they attack a guy dressed like Sting with a fake wig. And they can't shoot him that well. It's not even Jeff Farmer. They couldn't even do that. And then he had the towel either here or was here, and it was all the fake camera cuts and all this, and it was clearly, God, oh, I hate it. You know what? Bischoff deserved to be sent home for shit like this. Even if it wasn't his call, he deserved to be sent home. And then there's a Rottweiler that looked like it was just the sweetest dog in the world. And he's like, just got the tongue out and everything. He's like, oh, we're going walking? Wait, what am I doing, boss? Fake Sting's me. I can't believe this. I can't believe that they allowed this on pay-per-view. There were bullshit chants because the camera cut away. And then Rick and Scott brought Mickey J, I believe that was the referee, out. And they said, did you see that he beat him by pinfall? Well, he won, so give him the victory. And then they cut promos for a while. Again, this is a pay-per-view people paid for. And it's kind of no wonder that it was Halloween Havoc, I think, was the high point for pay-per-view buys. I think it was around 230-something thousand, Halloween Havoc 99. And then Mayhem 99, which replaced World War III. It'd be one of 2 Mayhems before the real Mayhem took over the company, i.e. all the backstage Mayhem. I think Mayhem 99 had 200,000 pay-per-view buys or thereabout, and then that was it. That's the last time they got anywhere near 200,000. But yeah, that was something that happened on pay-per-view with Sting getting his, Sting getting his arm bitten and everything, because yeah, anybody who greenlit that deserved to be fired. Just absolutely just fired. Can't. Just get out of here. Don't do this anymore. Tag title recaps of Benoit and Saturn teaming up. They dropped the Saturn and addressed Sting by this point because Jericho was gone. Jericho was going to debut in WWE inside of like 3 months by this point. But Jersey Triad members DDP and Chris Kanyon. Who better than Kanyon? With Bam Bam Bigelow in the corner, and Benoit and Saturn were defending the tag titles. And look, this is the longest match of the show. Actually, it was almost 4 times as long as a couple of the matches, including the opening one, and Miller versus Horace Hogan. And there was nothing wrong with this match, except for the fact it involves renowned murderer Chris Benoit. And as much as I try to be objective and appreciate and watch this stuff, I can only stomach so much. There's just certain things I just can't enjoy. This also dragged a bit, even though it was well worked. They probably realized, well, shit, we got a lot of time, because this was actually almost 3 times as long as the fucking pay-per-view main event. Like, that's actually kind of frightening. It wasn't quite as long as Actually, it was probably about as long as the Sting Rick Steiner match and bullshit aftermath. They focused on Benoit. They targeted him a little bit. The commentary did mention how his expression never changes no matter who he's looking at. Yeah, found out about that in late June 2007, didn't we? Fucking murderous prick. And he was going to go to Vengeance Night of Champions, possibly. Could you imagine if he had done that? Could you imagine? He had killed Nancy, he had killed Daniel, and he had gone to that pay-per-view and wrestled, I believe, CM Punk. Imagine what would have happened. But we get some interference, more bullshit. We get Malenko trying to help Saturn up, except it seemed like Saturn was either unable to wake up or Malenko just was the man of 1,000 holes, and he was using every single hole to hold Saturn back. And then Greetings from Asbury Park cutter variation. The referee turns around after about 5 years, and Canyon covers Benoit 1, 2, 3, so we have new champions. The thing is there were parts of this match that weren't bad, but as much as too many of these matches were too short or unnecessary as far as being part of a, as far as being included on pay-per-view. I mean, half this card could have been cut. They could have replaced it with better matches. No Booker T. Bret Hart was injured. Hogan was injured. Scott Hall wasn't even on this goddamn show. I don't know if Scott was in rehab at this point. But you had various talents that were being held back, being held down. You had a flux of talent. I mean, I want to say Eddie Guerrero had just returned recently or was about to return. And you didn't have him. There were various people. There was a run-in later with somebody that probably could have been involved in the pay-per-view and probably done a squash match, and it would have worked just. But nope, new tag team champions. Recaps of the same shit from the beginning. Savage, along with Team Madness, a.k.a. Miss Madness, the future Molly Holly, Medusa, and noted gold-digging tramp Gorgeous George. And I'm going to call her that because, look, Randy had his picadillos and his issues. I'm not denying that. I'm not saying that Randy wasn't a complicated individual. I said it Slamboree. I'm going to say again. Gorgeous George was nothing without him as far as being in the world of wrestling. I'm not saying she wasn't an individual and couldn't have had a nice living doing the only thing that she was good at, and that's dancing for money. Nothing wrong with that. You do whatever the hell you want to do, but somebody that had to get, friggin' implants to do that kind of stuff because apparently they just didn't have enough confidence about themselves, and then latches on to Randy. As much as he latched on to her, she latched on to him too. She wasn't any good. Kevin Nash was here. He had bad ribs. Randy Savage was shot physically. Absolutely shot physically. We have 9 minutes left. And this was bad. Randy could barely move. Yes, it was more story-focused, focusing on Nash's ribs, and that's fine. I didn't expect these guys to be doing head scissors and takeovers and, snap suplexes or snap ranas over the top to the floor, moonsaults or anything. But Randy's knees were done. I mean, they were done, honestly, by about late 97, if we're being honest, especially that double axe handle he did to the goddamn floor when, he was just when he hit Hogan, but he hit the knees on the ramp or the ring harder. But then Nash fires back. And mind you, there's no DQ called, but we get Gorgeous George attacking for what good she is. She lands flat on her back, which I'm just going to leave that there. Molly Holly, the future Molly Holly, takes Snake Eyes that could have ended really badly. Medusa does some good stuff because Medusa was always a really good worker. No DQ called there. And then here's Sid, and he attacks Nash, and it's a DQ, and he hits a powerbomb. And that's how the pay-per-view, the second to last Great American Bash pay-per-view ends. Well, under the WCW banner. And then WWE would shit all over it for a few years. My God, my oh my. Let's burn up the bayou. This was really, really bad. This was a very bad pay-per-view. One that people paid for. And it's no wonder that the pay-per-view buy rates would nosedive within just a few months. What do you guys think? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Redland. I'll see you soon.